Mike Moore Media.
In our studios, I have Clarissa Hamlin of Madison. She recently won first place in the junior exhibit category at the National History Day state competition in Raleigh. And next month, she'll be representing our state at the national level competition in Maryland. And Clarissa is here, with her mom, Audrey, and we're going to find out about her project. Hey, Clarissa, how are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing just great. Well, I'm learning about someone I'd never heard of before. So let's start at the beginning. Mm-hmm. How did this journey begin? And tell us about your project.
So it all started with a Goodwill shopping.
Goodwill?
Yes,
okay.
Shopping at Goodwill.
Okay.
A couple of years ago, we were just kind of walking through the aisles, and we spotted this really old scrapbook. It was coming apart, still is. Mm-hmm. And the pages, so us being the history people, we were just so curious.
Yeah.
Because it's not really something you find at Goodwill. Mm-hmm. So we opened it up and we bought it. Mm-hmm. And so we went home and we found, we were looking at the certificates, the exception certificates for the student. Her name was Jeanette Curcio.
Mm-hmm. This is someone local, someone in the county, or do we know?
Well,
don't know.
No.
Okay.
It was. The school was in New York, so somehow it traveled to North Carolina, Oak Ridge, North Carolina. Mm-hmm. But we found out she was a student at the school during the 60s. So it was right before Ethel had passed away. It was kind of in that range.
Okay. Now, we haven't even said the lady's name. Ethel?
Oh, yes, Ethel Traphagen. Yes.
Ethel Traphagen. Mm-hmm. Okay.
And so I saw the name. It was the acceptance letter was signed by Ethel herself.
Oh, wow. So
I looked up her name, and it was from there that I found out everything. She was mostly known for introducing pants or trousers to women. But there was so much more that she did leading up to that.
So we're looking at learning about Ethel Traphagen.
Yes.
Okay, the lady who pioneered pants.
Yes.
She was a fashion pioneer in really a big sense, not mm-hmm. only in the United States, but internationally.
Yes. Yeah. Yes, absolutely. Okay. Her impact is amazing.
Yeah. So you were curious. You got this scrapbook.
Yes.
You started learning about her, mm-hmm. and take us along that trip. What else did we learn about her?
So I learned first that she was Dutch. I had to start with basic knowledge about her and where she came from and all that kind of stuff before I went on to the more the bigger stuff, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. To get a background on her. Who was this lady? You'd never heard of her?
Never. Yeah.
And your mom is here. You ever heard of her? No?
I had not.
Okay.
No.
We didn't know the lady.
And being so, just for a second, being so, big, you would think that more designers would be talking about her. Mm-hmm. But, I never have I heard of her, ever, before I found the scrapbook.
But in her day, mm-hmm. she was very important
yes.
in changing fashions.
Yes.
And then somehow through the years, fashions changed mm-hmm. as they do, and she kind of got lost, the name got lost, and her impact too, unfortunately.
Yeah. She started the very first fashion school.
One of the very first fashion
mm-hmm.
schools.
Okay.
So it started.
I think I read she had 7 students to start, something like that. Just had a few students.
It was very few.
And then it grew and grew, and it was a big thing.
Yeah. Well, it started. She was in the industry for 10 years, working teaching jobs here and there, mm-hmm. and then in 1913 she won a New York Times contest for an evening gown, and it was kind of from there that she gained popularity in the industry. So then, around 10 years later, 1923, she opened her school, and like you said, it started very few students, but I found advertisements in the newspapers and archives, and it's just, she grew it. She strived to make it happen.
And what did she make happen? What did she do? What did she accomplish?
So at first, it was mainly about independence from France. Women or designers, I guess in general, were always going to France for inspiration, and France always had these over-the-top, long skirts, corsets, the most, extravagant gowns you can have, and it just wasn't practical for the women that were in the workforce during the war. It wasn't modern. So she took advantage of that, and forced the designers to look outside of just one place. And
she
then,
was a real visionary.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
And she wore pants herself on the streets.
Pants.
Yes, pants. That was another thing. She saw pants as the future for women, because for so many years they've been strained just to this one thing to wear, and it just wasn't real for.
So she saw some freedom and some expression and some
Yes.
things that maybe the New York designers didn't really have a clue,
Right.
perhaps.
Right. Yeah. Which she, a lot of people try to credit Coco Chanel for trousers, but Coco Chanel she was after Ethel Traphagen, and she was French.
Did they know each other? Did you find anything in your studies?
Didn't see a connection there. But I'm sure they knew of each other in the industry, having been so big. But Ethel, she was described as a very ambitious woman, and I think that's really true, considering that she made it happen.
And she was outspoken. You knew she
Yes.
was tall, and she
Yeah.
was a fashion model like
Oh,
herself.
her quotes are amazing. They're just so. She was not afraid to say what was on her mind. That was for sure, and
Okay.
I love that about her.
Are you the same way?
I like to think so, but only when I feel it's needed. I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very good. All right. I don't want to put you on the spot. Do you have a famous quote of hers? that comes
Oh,
to
I
mind?
have so many.
Yeah, we'll share one
Right
of
in my
those
book,
with us.
right here.
Yeah. Okay.
But let
We'll
me
get a little
see.
insight into her personally. We're talking with Clarissa Hamlin of Madison, and she's telling us about Ethel Traphagen. She was Dutch, and she had quite an influence in the United States and internationally in fashion, in the fashion world. We're finding out that Clarissa has won first place in the junior exhibit category, the National History Day state competition. That was in Raleigh, and now going on to the national level, and we're going to talk about the Smthsonian in that display
Yes,
too. So
yes.
yeah, big month coming up in June for her. And I've read also, Clarissa, that Ethel Traphagen entered the fashion world in 1904. She died in 1963. She was 80, and just very impressive of the impact that she made in that time. And you may have this all in your report here, but I was intrigued because she was associated with Vogue and Macy's and Lord and Taylor and Bloomingdale. And,
So many fashion houses.
Yeah, all of those big fashion houses and names. Yeah, okay. So a quote from her to kind of give us a little background here.
There's so many. They're kind of long, but I can try to trim them up a little bit.
Whatever you need to do.
Let me see. What women I know.
And if we go over time, that's okay. We're fine. We're good. Because we're learning about some lady here that maybe some of us, maybe many of us have never heard of, Ethel Traphagen. She's called the woman who pioneered pants.
Yes. Yeah. That was what she was described as in the newspapers,
Okay.
mainly. So that's kind of where I got my title from.
Yeah, but a lot more than that. So, the National History Day in North Carolina. While you're looking for a quote there, tell us how that went. That was, when was that held?
That was in. Say it again.
When was it the state level?
That was
state competition for that. Just recently?
April.
In April?
Yes.
In April. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And I'm thinking that from what we talked about before we started the podcast, that as you go into the national competition, so you're looking at young people. Oh, we're looking at young people. Oh, these are all young people.
Yes.
Because and we haven't even found out anything about you. So we'll get
Oh,
so
yeah.
tell us a little bit about you. We'll take a break here real quick.
So I'm homeschooled. I'm 14.
Okay.
And I love history, I guess.
Yeah, apparently.
I volunteer at my the local museum, the Mark. It's where my mom works. So I have access to a lot of like archival stuff, and I just love going through pictures and papers, and I think it's really important because I mean it's what we're built off of is what happened.
That's our roots.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, I love history, and I play volleyball.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you mentioned the Mark. I was just there last week talking to CJ. The Mark is such a special place, and a lot of people have never been to the Mark. They live over in Rockingham County. We have an Eden Historical Museum in Uptown Eden. A lot of people have never been there. It's an outstanding museum. And the Mark, we're very fortunate to have that, and the people that have been connected to that for so many years. So I'm glad you mentioned the Mark.
Yes,
that is
absolutely.
a good resource for things too. Yeah. Okay. All right. Have you found a quote?
Yes.
All righty.
Yes.
Let's have it.
It's actually short, and I found it.
Okay.
But this was December issue. Yeah. Women are being enslaved by organized commercial propaganda against their wills. Was one of her.
Okay.
That was one of them. All of her quotes are just they're so strong, and she says what she wants, and in such
Doesn't mince words.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
To the point.
Yeah. It's very to the point. Yeah.
Okay. Wow. Well, thank you for sharing that with us.
Yeah.
And we mentioned her. You mentioned her school a little bit, and she was a teacher, and so she made an impact that way as well. And just some of the things that I've read about her, and now you've put together to share this with so many others.
Yes.
So people will find out more about her that had never heard of Ethel Traphagen.
Yeah.
So I think that's exciting.
Yeah. Well, I want more people in the industry today to talk about her because, like I said earlier, so many people talk about Coco Chanel and Christian Dior, and I want to talk about Ethel. I need to hear more about her because even going to the library and seeing all these designers talk about their influences and their inspirations, it's really disheartening not to see her mentioned anywhere.
Well, I'm glad you discovered her.
And me too.
That trip to Goodwill.
Yeah.
In Oak Ridge.
Yeah.
And found the scrapbook. Did you have any dates in that? How old was that scrapbook? Do you have any? I mean, you said it was falling apart, but
Right. So the pictures were from around 1961 to 1963. So it was like right around the time of her passing. So it was later, and her school closed in 1991, which I thought very unfortunate. But it was later. It was
kind of closed the chapter.
Yeah.
There, unfortunately. And I know that your project has been chosen for display at the Smthsonian's National Museum of American History in Washington. That will be June 14th. What a big day that will be.
Yes, I know. I'm so excited.
Oh, congratulations.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, we're almost out of time, so thank you again for coming into the studio. Good to have your mom here, and you too, Clarissa.
Thank you.
In the last 30 seconds or so, anything you need to close with?
Well, I just hope that people get to learn more about Ethel Traphagen and know how important she was and appreciate her and what she did.
Well, we appreciate you and your studies on this. We're talking about Ethel Traphagen. Traphagen, and I've learned how to say her name here because it's Traphagen. So thank you, Clarissa. It's good to meet you.
Yes, thank you.
And Audrey, good to have you here. Have a wonderful trip.
Yes.
Yep. Congratulations again.
Thank you.